First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my brother stay at my house after he betrayed me 7 years ago? My wife, 38 female, and I, 35 male, been married for 1 year. 7 years ago, during a holiday ski trip, my entire family and I stayed in a chalet at a resort. One day, my then-girlfriend wasn't feeling well, so she stayed behind. I came back in the afternoon to retrieve something and found her and my brother, then 18 years old, having intercourse. I'll spare the details of what happened next. My ex-girlfriend and my brother both apologized and swore it was a spur-of-the-moment thing. I tried to make it work with my ex, but a few months later we broke up. My brother apologized, and I chose to be an understanding older sibling, so I forgave him. He was really matured a lot since then. My brother's place is undergoing some renovations and it will take 3 weeks. He asked if he could stay with my wife and I in the meantime, as we have an extra bedroom. I agreed initially. Then yesterday, I had a flashback to that day I found him with my girlfriend. I called him and told him I couldn't let him stay because I can't trust him alone with my wife. He was upset and said I could have told him sooner. Now he has to find somewhere else to stay and the renovators are coming in a few days. He also called me paranoid and said he has no interest in my wife. He said she's not even my type and she's too old for me. I told him sorry, I just can't let him stay. I suggested he move in with our other brother instead. He said whatever and hung up the phone. Am I the a-hole? I feel like I was justified, but maybe I shouldn't have been so sudden. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. If your wife not being his type is why he won't sleep with her, that means he would sleep with her if she was his type. And even if we assume he's telling the truth that she's not his type, she very well could be his type after a couple drinks. Now, of course, if you trust your wife, then you can trust nothing will happen. But that's not really enough. It's a matter of respect that your brother shouldn't even try. He said he's not like that anymore, and swore he would never do what he did regardless, and called me paranoid and untrusting. Some wounds don't fade with time, and his response by calling you paranoid and untrusting, instead of seeing that he caused this untrust, is manipulative. Not the a-hole. It sounds to me like he is not really remorseful when he made that comment about your wife. If he really was sorry, he should have said, I wouldn't sleep with your wife because I don't want to betray you again. I wouldn't trust him again. Also, info. How did your family react to the situation? I only told our other brother about the situation. No one else in our family knows. It happened near the end of the trip. I told the other family members I broke up with my girlfriend because she cheated on me, but didn't say with who. Everyone sucks here. I totally see where you're coming from, as I also have past trauma/distrust from my ex. But I can also see some holes in your tale. You said he matured a lot since then, and you forgave him. You haven't mentioned how your wife, the other person in the house, feels. You're also not taking into consideration the trust you have in your wife. It's clear your ex was also at fault for the chalet. Your wife is a different person, and I assume you trust her. Now, for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not pushing my daughters to cuddle with my wife? My wife and I have 3 daughters. 13, 7, and 3 years old. My wife is 6 months pregnant with our 4th. I have always been really affectionate with our daughters, pretty much from their birth. I never force or pressure them. I would just ask if they wanted to cuddle when we're watching a movie or something. My wife is affectionate, but not as much as I am. My 3-year-old usually just sits on her own with her toys, but my 7-year-old pretty much has a permanent reservation in my lap. When my 13-year-old turned 11, she asked if she could sit on her own from now on. I said of course, and she did so. But then maybe 2 to 3 months ago, she asked if we could snuggle up again. She said the only reason she stopped was because her friends said it was weird, but now she doesn't care anymore. My wife was happy when my 13-year-old asked to cuddle again, but I noticed she would get a little sad when she saw 7 and 13-year-old with me. I've asked them both if they would like to cuddle with their mother for a while, and 7-year-old would usually go to her mother and then come back to me after a while, but 13-year-old would rather stay with me. My wife broached this with me and said she wanted me to tell them to cuddle with her more. I told her I did suggest that to them, but I'm not going to push or pressure them. I know it might be difficult for her, But I suggested to my wife that she ask herself and just be more all-round affectionate with them, especially when I'm not around. But she doesn't accept this and says I'm being selfish and unfair and that I should be sharing our daughters more. She also suggested that I deny them when they want to cuddle so they go to her instead. She says she would do the same for me. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Someone suggested I edit my post to mention this. But I don't believe my wife's suggestion of denying my daughter's cuddles was genuine. I think it was just her grief talking. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your wife has to learn that this is a bodily autonomy issue. If they don't want to snuggle her, they won't. And trying to force the issue isn't going to help. Thanks for your comment. Yeah, I agree. But I still don't want her to be upset, you know? Especially since she's pregnant. Pregnancy does not override consent or any other fundamental value. Not the a-hole. No one should be pressured into giving anyone affection, not even their parents. I understand that your wife is hurt, but pushing your daughters or denying them your affection is not the solution. Agreed. Any suggestions how to approach this with my wife? I think that she needs to be reassured that this isn't that the kids don't love her, but that everyone has a different love language and hers with the kids so far hasn't been cuddling. She needs to understand that your kids have their own bodily autonomy and want different affection from different people. It's a hard conversation to have, and I do understand why she is sad about it. But that doesn't mean she can force it on the kids. I agree with the love language thing. My wife has always spent time with our daughters doing activities, mostly things like baking together. I think it's just that my 13-year-old wanting to cuddle again has made my wife want in on that as well. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not rehiring the nanny we fired over a misunderstanding? I, 38 female, have a 17-year-old daughter from a previous relationship and a 6-year-old daughter from my current marriage. My husband and I both work, so I employ a nanny. This nanny also takes care of my 11-year-old nephew who comes over a lot when my brother is at work. A couple days ago, my meeting for the afternoon was rescheduled, so I decided to go home at 4:30 instead of my usual 6:30. The nanny was supposed to bring my daughter home for a snack before dropping her off at dance. I walk in, and I'm surprised to find that the nanny isn't back yet. I go to the kitchen and find a can of Smirnoff Ice Mash poking out of the trash can. All the alcohol in my house is in a wine cellar, and my husband and I don't buy Smirnoff. I was furious because nobody in the house had any business drinking. My nanny, when she was hired, was told that drinking on the job was strictly banned. I went into my daughter's room where she was lounging on her bed and held up the can. I asked if this was hers. My daughter swore up and down that this wasn't hers. She looked me in the eyes and said that she heard a can being cracked open by the nanny and that she saw the nanny drinking something in a can as she passed by the kitchen. I called the nanny and she said she was on her way home and there was traffic. She comes in and I ask her about the can. She said this wasn't hers but kept not meeting my eyes. The nanny admitted to drinking from a can but said she disposed of it elsewhere and it wasn't alcohol. I decided to believe my daughter and told the nanny that we were going to have to let her go. After the whole debacle, I called my brother to tell him that somebody else would be caring for his son when he came over next. A few hours later, my brother calls to say that his son claims that my older daughter told him she'd get alcohol from friends and she disposed of it before we got home. My younger daughter comes up to me after dinner and says she's seen the same colored cans as the one I found under her older sister's bed. I confronted my older daughter and she finally admitted she lied. She apologized to her sister and said she learned her lesson. My brother said his son really wants the same nanny as before, and my younger daughter asked if this means the nanny can come back. My older daughter said it would be humiliating to have to admit fault to the nanny, and said I can't be so cruel as to make her see this nanny again every day. She asked if this means she has to grovel in front of the nanny. I told her that while we are disappointed, we do not want to put her through this, and hopefully we can find just as good a nanny. I told both my brother and my younger daughter that it would be best we do not reach out to the nanny in any way, and that it would be rather humiliating to make my daughter apologize given the situation and potential for awkwardness. My younger daughter cried and said she loved the nanny more than her sister. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole, not for not rehiring her, but for not apologizing and making your daughter apologize. So it's cool if she just goes through life not taking responsibility for her actions because it's humiliating? Just what the world needs more of right now. Economically privileged kids grow up learning that their actions have no consequences and that their feelings are more important than other people's livelihoods. Exactly this. Opie needs to see this. The nanny has lost her job and her income over a lie. The only person facing consequences of the daughter's lie is the nanny. Opie is a terrible mother if she's worrying about her daughter's feelings instead of making the situation right. All her daughter is learning is that it's okay to lie, regardless of who she hurts in the process. With lessons like that, she's going to be a horrible adult. You're the a-hole, and both you and your daughter needs to apologize. I doubt your nanny wants to work for you anymore, but saying it's too humiliating for your daughter to apologize is... yikes. You're the a-hole. You're punishing 4 people to save the one who caused this entire mess. You're also teaching your eldest daughter that actions don't have consequences. She took the coward's way out and blamed her actions on someone else and got caught in a lie. She literally cost an innocent person their job. A fitting punishment would be for her to have to see that person every day, so should think about doing this sort of thing next time, especially since your brother, nephew, and youngest daughter like her. You're not always going to be there to protect her or keep her from facing consequences. At the very least, you should have her apologize to the nanny, and you should too. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for taking a much-needed vacation in the middle of my wife's grief? At around 6 p.m. Tuesday night, my mother-in-law died. Doctors had discovered that she had an inoperable brain tumor around 5 months ago, and we pretty much knew that there was no hope. My mother-in-law had been in hospice and it was a good facility, but my wife still went into total zombie mode. So it's been 5 months of non-stop work and no affection or appreciation of any of my efforts. My wife does nothing but eat pre-packed microwave meals, so I have to cook dinner for our 15-year-old daughter. She never makes an effort, to the point of wearing sweats even to work, and worst of all, she went from showering every day to maybe twice a week. My daughter made my wife a cake for her 45th birthday 3.5 months ago. I knew that my 45th birthday, which was yesterday, would be given no attention because doctors had said, again, that this was the end. And my wife has done nothing but cry when she hears that. I called some of my family and friends, who all live in Arizona, and they said I deserved to have a good birthday. So I agreed to go back home for the week to celebrate and catch up. My wife got furious when she heard I was going, and she started begging and crying that she would control her outward expressions of depression and grief if I stayed, and said that she felt it was true this time, even though we have had like 4 false alarms regarding her mother before. In addition, her mother and I have never been close, and I know I don't land anywhere close to the top people she wants to see before she passes. My wife said she'll work to be less distant, and she does not care if we lose the money if I had already booked the plane ticket. I told my wife that I didn't need her to pretend to act less distant, and I know she's grieving in a way I've never grieved before, but that I was no help to her right now and was so fatigued that I needed a break. So I ended up flying down to Arizona, and on Tuesday night I got the call that my mother-in-law had passed from my daughter. She said she's staying at her best friend's house and she's perfectly fine. However, my wife texts me and says I betrayed our wedding vows. I asked if I should come back when we were expecting a lot of old family friends for my birthday, and my return flight is on Sunday. My wife says to do whatever I want, and that if I'm expecting my old workout every day and dresses up every day wife back when I come home, I will be disappointed. Am I the a-hole for taking this trip because I needed to do something for myself, or else I'd go crazy? I will be flying back Sunday, but I know my wife will be barring me from helping with the funeral. Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. All you do is complain. It's exhausting to cook dinner for a child who is perfectly capable of cooking dinner for herself. You are upset that your wife isn't wearing makeup and nice clothes. This is exhausting for you? Too bad. It's not about you. I am fairly certain you have ended your marriage with your actions. I hope Opie's wife can pull herself out of her grief enough to start divorce proceedings. Yikes. To start divorce proceedings. Plot twist, the dying mom's final wishes to her daughter were lawyer up and crush your husband. Way to make this entire situation completely about yourself. You wanted a good time, so decided to abandon your wife during possibly the worst time of her life, then didn't even go back after her mother had died because you wanted a birthday party? Yes, you're the a-hole. He abandoned his wife and his daughter in their time of grief. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.